Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to When's Happy Hour. I'm Aileen.
I'm Sammy.
And today we have the most special guest we've ever had in our whole lives. No offense to the other guests. I'm just kidding. We have Gary Vaynerchuk. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. I'm definitely not kidding. Anybody who's ever been on this show before, you are now at least the second best guest of all time.
Yeah, see, we have some humor still. So you're the king of like just the hustle, branded the hustle. We wrote about this in our book about just all these people who claim that they're hustling, but like they're not. They're just posting about it. So what does it mean to be a hustler?
You know, for me, it's funny. It's a funny word, right? I remember when I first started really using it. It's something I grew up. You know, I was a big baseball kid, and like Pete Rose was, you know, Charlie Hustle, and like it was just such a good word from coaches and things of that nature. And so in 2007, 8, when I kind of first started hitting the business scene, not the wine scene, it was a word that I spent a lot of time talking about, hustle, crushing it, and the economy was terrible, and you know, it really resonated. People really, you know, galvanized towards it. You know, ironically, you're asking me this question at a time where I think the word has taken on some negative connotation, right? A lot of people are actively trying to use my name as a poster child to burnout and bad stuff around hustle, which concerns me. For me, my personal definition of it is a couple things. One, genuinely understanding that work ethic is part of the equation if you're unhappy. If you're trying to get out of something that you're not thrilled about, the extra reps in the gym matter. You know, the extra studying at night matters. And the extra hours working on your thing matter. Two, it's for me, it's also kind of very closely linked to passion. When I use hustle over work ethic, it's like happy pursuit. You know, it's kind of like back to, you know, fitness terms, the person that's happily running for an extra 30 minutes than they normally do getting prepped for the marathon, sweating, and they're pumped. I would hate that, but I can see it in their face that they're enjoying the grind. So for me, hustle is a definition of work ethic meets passion around enjoyment, or the opposite, desperately trying to get out of a situation that you no longer enjoy. And yeah, I think we've gone through an era where it was glamorized and everybody tried to pretend they were going hard, to your point. I actually think we're in the early stages of it being demonized.
Yeah.
And that's been fascinating for me to watch it evolve.
So for someone who does want to work hard because either they're passionate or they really want to change their position, how can someone what's a question you can ask yourself to be really honest with whether you're hustling or you're wasting time or you're kind of deluding yourself about what you're really doing?
You don't really know. You know, it is a post-game thing. You know, which is why I go back to, are you enjoying the process? Like, I love putting in hard work on something that ended up being a huge waste of time because I enjoyed it when I was doing it. I thought it was right. I thought those 15 meetings about this thing were right. But then I ended up not acting on it. I mean, there's been deals I've worked on for 4 months that I decided to pull out at the 11th hour. Did I waste my time? Maybe in the way that question, and a lot of people ask me questions about that, is framed up. I'll take it as I learned from it, you know, and I didn't know it was a waste of time at the time. Like this, you know, the biggest mistake I see in culture, or at least one of the biggest, is people trying to think they know the outcome before going through it. Gary, should I go to grad school or start this startup? I don't fucking know. Like, and nor will you. And even more interesting is once you do it, you'll never know the alternative. Maybe you go and start a $500 million company and you're like, I knew it. But maybe you would have found the love of your life at grad school. Like, right? I mean, like, you know, and so like, can we just once and for all make people understand that they have no idea, that knowing what the right decision is at the time you're making the decision is humanly impossible?
So something just sort of tied
to this.
And
real quick, and I apologize, that doesn't mean you can't be thoughtful along the way, right? It doesn't mean that you can make a decision, you're doing it, and then a couple weeks in, even though 3 weeks earlier it seems so right, you're like, wait a minute, this feels like a waste of time. And then even if you declare to your whole world that you're doing this, people fear changing their mind out of judgment.
Yes, definitely.
So how do you pull out of that decision? Like if you're...
Stop worrying about other people's opinions. Like, I love declaring I'm gonna do something and then not.
So then, but if you're not worried about other people's opinions, could that also come off as
delusional?
Rude?
Rude, definitely not,
No.
in my opinion. Not the way I see it. It's
Okay.
not like I'm rolling up on you and saying, I don't give a fuck, It's just not internalizing you being more right than me about me.
What's the best way of approaching something like that? Like you thought this was, like you said, 11th hour pullout.
Listen, I'm trying to think about something. I do this so often.
And you don't think twice or feel bad about it, something like that?
No, because when I make decisions, I'm making them at that moment and things change.
Yeah, I think that's an important message. So many people go one way and then they
And that's real life.
learn something new.
Listen, you both reacted so heavy to that point about people's opinions. Like, just because you thought nursing school was brilliant in August, if you decide in October it's not, what you're worried about is all the propaganda you created to your entire network that nursing school was going to be amazing. Right. And here you are 100 days later changing your mind, and you're worried that everybody thinks that that's a weakness or a shortcoming. I view that as a strength.
Right. Even taking other people's opinions out of the equation, how do you ever feel self-doubt about the fact that you have made changes so many times?
No, I do not. But I also think that's why I'm kind of an entrepreneur. Like, that's my makeup. That's probably why I was a DNF student. I think somebody who's a little bit more type A and a little more structured, who values, if she or he values that, then I understand how their perspective is different. They may think I'm schizophrenic or crazy or too loose or not thoughtful or all that. I understand that. I also have 25 years professionally at this point of a lot of success predicated on my lack of fear of taking micro losses for macro wins. I look at them as micro losses. I wasted some money on nursing school and 100 days. That's a micro loss versus becoming a nurse for the next 29 years and being unhappy the whole time.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. Wait, so then you mentioned entrepreneur. What do you feel like, I'm sure so many people say this, but the true definition of entrepreneur, because it's changed every year, I feel like it changes. What do you feel like, because you mentioned that just now, what if she's an entrepreneur or if I'm an entrepreneur, what do you think is the main thing?
It's funny, in the last 6 months, a friend of mine, Ted, helped me with this on social recently. I've changed my tone on this. I used to be very aggressive about this because I love being one, and I think that I was potentially audacious and things that I don't appreciate. I think, look, entrepreneurship has a very clear definition. You're working for yourself. Mm-hmm. Let's leave it at that, right? Like, my idea that you always had to sell candy and you always were that person, that's just me being on the extreme spectrum of entrepreneurship. And I guess, no question, I take enormous pride and satisfaction that I was one in the 80s and 90s when nobody was, and I got shit on for it, and education was the only game, and now to watch everybody lean into my thing, there's a sense of but I think I've got to unwind that a little bit because I think it's dangerous as I have more attention to be too binary about this. It's not complicated. Entrepreneurship is you taking on all the risk and it's your thing. And, there's nuances underneath it, right? Like, do you have a side hustle while you have a job? Is that entrepreneurship? Maybe, if you want to define it. Like, to me, I don't think we get to define, but I think that, back to some things are facts, not opinion. Entrepreneurship has its definition in Webster's like anything else, and it's taking on all the risk and running your own business. And
knowing that you are prone to changing your mind, even for the right reasons, how would you tell someone to stay motivated with something when they have questions in their head about what they're doing and if they should really be doing it?
Right. So
when you're in the process of making that.
You're asking a very thoughtful question, which is, okay, if we put changing your mind on a pedestal, or if it's more accepted, what about seeing things through? Right. One of my favorite questions, because I think some of the biggest businesses of all time were shut down a year before they became the biggest businesses of all time.
Like what?
We don't know.
That's true.
But let me give you an example of one that was pivoted and they didn't give up. Slack originally started as a game that was unsuccessful.
Didn't know that.
I do.
Yeah.
And so, had Stuart and the rest of the team given up, we wouldn't have Slack today. If you're listening to me now as a kid, you're like, oh, the game's not working. Gary says I can change my mind, and you go on selling shoes. So it's a very personal question. Here's what I would say. Where this takes me is the following place. I want to be the Pied Piper for people to be more insular with their decision making. That's it.
What does that mean?
Not mom's opinion, not dad's opinion, not your girlfriend's opinion, boyfriend's, best friend, random people on social media, acquaintances, idols, people you admire. You for you. You for you. At this moment.
Yeah, but they're not, people don't know themselves that well, I feel like.
Great. But even if we,
time.
I think that's a great point. I think that a lot of times I've historically taken things for granted that I was gifted DNA-wise. I am only palpable because I have self-awareness. I have such an extroverted personality that if I didn't have good parenting and have a level of equal humility to that, competitive spirit, audacity, confidence, I'd be tougher to consume. Mm-hmm. But even recognizing that some people on first impact will not consume me well allows me to be thoughtful about my adjectives, my words, how I navigate. I agree with you. But if I'm the Pied Piper of only for you, inevitably the next chess step is for us to start talking more about self-awareness.
Right.
Do you feel like there were moments in your life where you were able to make bigger leaps in your self-awareness, realizing what you actually cared about so that other people can hear what those are and then look at them for themselves?
Yes. I think when I started putting out wine content and later business content, my inherent intuitive understanding that I need to read all the comments created a very intriguing internal understanding versus an external understanding, even though I was consuming external feedback. Mm-hmm. By seeing myself through other people's eyes, pro, con, and indifference, it started challenging myself to even have more of an interpersonal, inner voice conversation. And I also have an ambitious streak in me. I have an enormous ambition to be liked. And if you care about that, then you inevitably, it's this very big contradiction where I desperately want to be liked, but at the same token, actually don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. And in that constant tension has created a practice of self-awareness.
But you have to care a little bit what somebody thinks. Like there has to be some level of giving.
I respect what people think because it's their opinion.
Right.
But I could never make a decision of my life based on somebody who has no idea who I am. Mm-hmm. Guys, your mother doesn't know who you are completely.
It's true.
This is very true though, right? Like if you think about it, right? Like you take the 5 to 7 people that you are closest to on earth, and then there's a bunch of people in the room right now. If you really do this is super interesting to me, and you actually think about what they don't know, how the hell is a friend or an acquaintance or a random comment gonna know what the hell, and that's it. That's real life to me. And so how in the world, in a world where I know that to be true, can I let somebody else dictate my decisions? Because they're not dealing with all the information. They're just not, and by the way, the people closest to you usually have some vested interest in what you're doing, financially, emotionally, to brag about, and so they're giving you bad data. Your parents are giving you bad information because they care about what they're telling their sister about you, what they're saying about you at the country club, what another alpha mom in the neighborhood's gonna post on Instagram about you if you do this thing. They're insecure too.
Right. Have you ever looked at a commentary about what you're doing, either good or bad, and thought, I'm taking that to heart, even if it's something?
Of course. Yeah. I love feedback. I just don't blindly, I take pieces of it.
Mm-hmm. Right, you just want to decide what you agree with.
Somebody's comment on my Instagram post is based on 1 minute of a clip of a conversation. They don't have the full context of even that conversation, let alone me as a human, so I have to take it with a grain of salt. But it doesn't, just being insular doesn't mean you become delusional and become so self-centered that you can't hear feedback.
Right, for sure. You talked about just self-awareness and how you need to be liked, but you also don't care. When did you come to that? When did you come to that awareness? Was that
probably in my late 30s when I started becoming more popular, but then it allowed me to rewind and realize, oh, that's why I didn't drink alcohol in high school. Oh, that's why I was the biggest class clown, but my teachers liked me because I wanted to make everybody laugh and I wanted the attention, but I'm a nice person and I felt bad for the teacher if I was too disruptive, so I had this great kind of perfect fine line of what I think is admirable class clown that disrupts. You know, like in my late 30s, I started doing a history lesson on myself, and things became more obvious to me.
Yeah, we always say that like it takes time to learn yourself.
By the way, I apologize. By the way, I want to share this because I don't want this to all be a rah-rah session. It also allowed me to understand the reason I didn't give critical feedback and radical candor was because I don't like confrontation. I don't like negativity. And the reason I would surprise people, girls that I broke up with, employees that I fired, my shortcoming in my 20s and early 30s was predicated on the same thing. And so I had to work on that.
How did you actively work on it? Therapy?
Practice. Not therapy, but practice.
Yeah.
Like doing things that were uncomfortable to me, giving negative feedback along the way. I adore Alex, right? I'm looking right at her. In the last week or two, there's things that I've told her that I want done better. And I hope she would tell you that I'm not yelling. I'm like trying to deliver with honey. Like, right? Even when, you agree when I come with you with something, I'm almost being a little passive, right?
She has.
But I wasn't even willing to do that years ago.
Right.
You know?
How did you learn how to manage people and give feedback and
Practice. You know, I got thrown into it early in a family business. So by 18, being the boss's son, even though I didn't have a managerial position, everybody, you know, the stock boys in the liquor store knew who my dad was, right? And so like it immediately, but I also was over empathetic. I did the thing I always teach kids that go into family businesses, which is walk in with humble pie. You know, just because you're fucking in a lucky sperm club and like you're, you know, your mom happens to have this business and you're the daughter. These people that have been working here have been working their ass off for 5 or 10 years. You don't know shit. Nobody gives a fuck about your opinion. So like, calm it down. That's what I did. That really helped me win over the 10 people that worked there. Wasn't a big company. But practice. And by the way, some of this is DNA. Like I was always a leader on teams. I was a leader in my neighborhood. I was the class president in 5th grade. Like I like
goes way back.
Yeah, it goes way back.
So then what was the most valuable piece of advice you've ever received in your career?
It's actually an extremely raunchy piece of, well, a couple things. My dad gave me great advice, which is your word is your bond. So I was a salesman, and so that meant embellishing/lying was part of the equation in my youth. And I've become far less of that, which is amazing, because that helps, especially in this transparent world. So thank God for that. Huge. But I always think about this. There was a super raunchy 80-year-old liquor salesman when I was 15 that came up to me and said something super inappropriate. And I don't remember what the context of why he was saying it, but the saying was, "Kid, you don't know what you have until you sleep with it." And it was kind of like it was a very Jersey 80-year-old mobster talk, but what he was basically saying to me is like, look, don't overthink this. Until you go through it, you won't know.
For sure.
And it was actually, if you think about this interview, I talked a little bit about that already, right? Like you can't overthink it up front.
Right.
Like you just can't. Like we're always wrong. Because you know, there's a great Russian saying that says, man thinks and God laughs. And like, that's how I think about stuff. Like I can have a million plans and then tomorrow a helicopter can go through the building that we're in, right? Like yesterday in New York. Like I just, you know, that's the extreme. But in the micro business, I can be like, okay, Jason's gonna do this on this huge project in a month. And you know, something might happen to Jason's family where he has to go home for a month. And I fucked it up. You know, or like Jason will fall in love and like has to move to Ohio. Like I don't, like I think about this stuff, that, like as a true operator, I think about this a lot.
Right.
And it helps me be, by the way, I think if anybody's listening right now, it speaks to why I'm not super anxious. I know that I'm in control of nothing, which almost automatically by nature makes me capable of controlling everything.
That's a big thing. I have trouble
like that one.
releasing control.
You like that one? It's super interesting to me. It's a huge vulnerability.
For sure.
Because you're not in control. The fuck are you in control of?
Literally nothing.
Would you consider
Nothing.
yourself a spiritual person? I feel like that's
In
a very spiritual
yes,
thing.
Yes, I think over the last half decade, I'm like, mainly because I read feedback, mainly because like Buddhist monks email me and they're like, hey, and you know, like
You got to calm down.
no, like hey, like you may not look like it, but you're way more zen-y, stoic, you know, spiritual than I'm, you know, like. And I'm like, am I? You know, like people are like shooting like, you're a blah, 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 blah. And I have to like Google it and it's very calm in its balance of extreme, you know, and I'm like, wow. So yes, I think in hindsight, It's something I would have never said yes to 5 years ago, but I would say yes. I know we have to go one or two more.
Okay.
Let's pivot to content for a second, since you are obviously someone who puts out a lot of content. So something you say is that people shouldn't be
That
afraid.
puts out more content than me.
We don't
No.
know.
I don't think
Like
so.
maybe like a
Yeah.
I genuinely
13-year-old
don't think so.
on her Instagram.
Right? I think I actually may be the one.
I don't know. Sammy said 13-year-olds on Instagram. I mean, on Snapchat.
Maybe them.
Maybe them.
I'm in it with them. TikTok, I'm rolling, guys. I got a cartoon on YouTube Kids. Like, I'm rolling. Anyway, go ahead.
So something you say a lot is that people shouldn't be afraid of putting out content. They should just go for it.
Yes.
How do you balance that with like protecting your brand and being careful and putting out a lot of high quality when you're just someone who's inexperienced
high
wants to put
quality
out a lot?
Is predicated on the audience, not on your subjective insecurities.
Meaning what?
Meaning, high quality doesn't exist. The audience gets to decide, not you, before you put it out.
It's a great point.
I mean,
Yeah.
to me, a meme about the NBA, like putting Steph Curry's head on a scene from a movie, is high quality, as is Star Wars 9. So I think who gets to decide high quality is the audience, not you. I think that's perfection is disguised for insecurity. And so I think there's a lot there. And, you know, back to being safe or protecting your brand, you're the one putting it out. It's no
Right.
different than talking. Like, don't use bad words that offend people and you'll be safe. So
I don't mean safe in the sense of like
Got
not
it.
non-controversial. I
Got it.
mean like you try something and you try something else and it might end up that you're kind of shooting from the hip rather than being really thoughtful about it.
the alternative is the world we live in now, where everybody's posting things that they know are going to work on Instagram for likes, and nobody's actually being creative anymore, and everybody's being a PR agent of themselves and isn't telling the truth and isn't being creative and isn't taking risks. So yeah, I'll go with one.
So then what about oversaturation? You talk about posting
Can't
like
do it.
15
You
posts
can't
a
get
day.
you can't get oversaturation. You're not
Why not?
reaching. I have 6.1 million followers on Instagram. I put out reaches only a fraction of that.
What about people who are trying to grow their... So is it worth it to try to grow your social media account right now?
It depends on what you're trying to achieve in life, right?
Well,
I think it's worth trying to amass attention
Mm-hmm.
so that you can achieve all the things that you'd like to achieve as a person, whether that's capitalistic or altruistic or
Yeah.
Last question. A lot of people talk about morning routines, but not a lot about night routines.
Yes.
What's your night
We believe in
routine
night
like?
routines.
I come home and I pass out.
How much do you sleep?
Like,
6
really?
to 8 hours.
Oh, that's
Really?
more than I would have thought.
Did
Yeah.
you wake up in the middle and then like do things and then go back?
You'll love this. The second I fall asleep, I will not wake up until I wake up.
Would your team agree?
Oh yeah. I think they would. Like, only because I'm probably on different time zones than you. Like
Maybe.
when I like think about it. When I'm in New York, like you get nothing between 12 and 6 a.m. You could steal my home. You could steal my home. I'm out like a light when I go to sleep.
Yeah.
I think sleep is super important. The big thing I think people are confused about with my hustle thing is it's what when I'm awake for the 18 hours. It's fucking insanity for 18 straight hours.
So like there's no relaxation time?
Have you?
I'm Alex, and I book every single minute. Every single minute.
How does that make you feel?
Amazing. Because I love what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Do you ever go on vacation?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and do you unplug for vacation
Yeah.
or do you? Okay, that's good.
Well,
Yeah, I'm like, I'm going hard when I'm on the field.
right.
But you can really check out when you're
Yeah,
asleep.
big time.
All
And
right.
vacation and weekends.
If there's any one tiny piece of advice you can give people that could change their day, what would it be?
Call somebody that you haven't talked to in a year that you've historically enjoyed and just say, hey,
Okay.
I'm super into this one.
Yeah.
There's something very weird about this thing that I just told you. Because I say it once in a while on social,
Yeah.
the feedback I get is extraordinary. Reconnecting with a best friend. Like,
It's true.
humans are funny. Like, you have a best friend for 6 years, one little thing changes, like a relationship, somebody moves, somebody gets a little bit busier at work, you just get into patterns. You don't even realize why you don't hang anymore. It's all good. You still have huge love for them.
Right.
And
And
then
then-
this one phone call leads to drinks next Thursday, which leads to a positive relationship in your life that leads to good stuff.
And the whole non-talking, you're like, I know she knows that we haven't talked in a while, but like, why isn't anyone making the effort?
It's in a good way. Like I don't talk to my mom as much as I used to because I don't commute to Jersey anymore. But we like almost are talking, like I'm almost talking to her right now. It's like simpatico that like, it's good. You it might be very healthy. You just have a good friend. You don't talk because you're just both busy and you're both happy and you don't need to check in on that person and babysit them. It's all good. That's why I think that call could be interesting.